The night market showed its face only after the city's neon signs had bled themselves husky and dull, when office towers ceased to glare and turned into black, silent monoliths. Lanterns wobbling on filaments of string welcomed the brave and the wandering, painting a private constellation above the narrow back street where the market rose each Friday. Maria had heard rumors of its stall sellers of cloud-hued candy that dissolved into memories, tailors who could stitch names off shirts and onto new ones, potters firing cups that captured laughter if you drank carefully. But she had never visited. She had reasons, all of them anxious. Tonight, she had simply walked too far. A project deadline hovered over Monday like a guillotine. Her supervisor's tight-lipped reminders echoed between each heartbeat. The rent was late, the utilities overdue, the fridge uncooperative. These worries pinched her shoulders, as though invisible fingers kneaded knots into muscle. After a long trudge, she looked up and found herself in warm lantern light at the mouth of the clandestine stalls. The aromas jostled first, ginger, skewered lamb, sizzling scallion cakes, but the place lacked the frantic jangle of daytime markets. Conversations sounded padded, vendors spoke with hushes rather than yells, and a low, steady wind carried music like someone plucking harp strings beneath water. A strange, inviting quiet unfurled around the bustle, as if every voice knew not to crack the night's porcelain calm. Maria drifted forward, telling herself she would look for 5 minutes, 10 at most, before heading home to finish drafting the financial projections that had already devoured 2 consecutive weekends. She passed stalls hawking miniature bonsai forests contained inside marbles, one selling umbrellas painted with yesterday's weather, another exchanging monochrome photographs for secrets spoken into wax envelopes. At the 4th row, she noticed the hourglasses. They stood on a draped table whose mustard cloth gave off the faint scent of cedar. Some were no bigger than a finger joint, others climbed to the height of a small child. Instead of sand, each was filled with different substances: fizzing golden powder, emerald grains that glowed faintly, tiny silver spheres that made no sound as they shifted. Behind the table sat a woman of indeterminate age, her eyes bright, hair pinned up with a feather that looked pulled from a storm cloud. A placard rested at her elbow. It read, "Hourglasses for worry, to slow what need not hurry." Maria half smiled despite herself, amused by the rhyme. The woman inclined her head, as though beckoning an unspoken question forth. "I thought hourglasses measured time," Maria said, surprising herself by speaking first. "Ordinary ones," the vendor agreed. Her voice resembled the background hush, soft but firm enough to be heard. "These operate on a different axis." Maria raised a brow. "A different axis. If time's weight were shifted sideways, you might find emotions sliding through the chambers instead," the woman said. "Mine are tuned toward worry. Turn one, and the ache you're carrying slows. Doesn't vanish. Nothing honest can, but its urgency thins, giving you room to breathe or think." Maria hesitated. "Sounds philosophical or maybe chemical." "Experiential," the woman replied, offering a square of black cloth spritzed with rosewater to polish fingerprints from a tall, garnet-filled hourglass. "Same outcome either way, less churn inside the ribs." The pitch was delicate, no promise of a miracle cure, only an attractive easing. Still, Maria's rational side hurried forth. "Isn't it dangerous? People need anxiety to notice problems and fix them. It merely slows worry, as the sign says," the woman answered, smoothing a wrinkle in the mustard cloth. "While the grains glide, urgency proceeds at the trickle you set. Flip it again if you require more stillness." Maria scanned the collection. One hourglass, slender as a fountain pen, held ultramarine bits that looked like pulverized twilight. Another, squat and wide, contained curled shavings of translucent pink stone, swirling like petals in slow water. "How long does the effect last?" she asked. "Depends on the model. 15 minutes to 3 hours, occasionally longer for those who have practiced." The vendor extended her palm over a medium-sized device whose sand glittered the color of tea leaves. "This one is faithful for about an hour. Good for a conversation you've been dreading or an appointment with a stern dentist." Maria chuckled. The sound felt foreign, as though borrowed from a version of herself who existed on vacation. She put a hand to her tote bag, feeling the edge of her planner inside. "I do have something Monday," she murmured. "Work?" the woman guessed. "Product presentation, investors," her stomach curdled. "My director keeps implying if I fumble the pitch, our funding dries up and half the department gets cut." The vendor's eyes softened. You have rehearsed? Relentlessly, Maria said. Still, every time I imagine the room, my chest clamps. Lately, even opening the slide deck makes my breath staccato. The woman turned to a narrow glass cylinder with grains the hue of quiet bronze evenings. Tiny flecks within reflected glints of amethyst. She slid it forward with a hush. 45 minutes of eased breath, she said, with a tapering grace period, calms the quiver without dulling the mind. Price is one memory you choose to surrender, Maria froze. A memory? Something unneeded. A commute, a flavor, a day you've already told yourself you'd forget? The woman's tone carried no menace. I do accept currency too, but its value fluctuates. Memories stay steady. Maria's stomach twisted again, but now out of curiosity. I'm not sure I can part with any. Of course, said the vendor, retrieving the bronze glass as if it had been only a suggestion. No harm in looking. Maria lingered. Lantern light in the grains made them flicker like lamplight across a river's skin. She pictured Monday's boardroom, glossy table, bottled water sweating condensation, 6 board men awaiting bullet points. She pictured her tongue tripping on the second slide, the blank faces of layoffs and her colleagues' futures. Then she pictured inhaling through her nose, flipping an hourglass, feeling tension slow to a manageable seep. What if I pay cash? She asked. The vendor named a sum steep but not extortionate, and Mayre found bills in her wallet, still crisp from the ATM. She handed them over, partly relieved. Easier to forfeit paper than memories. The woman wrapped the bronze hourglass in indigo tissue, binding it with twine. Instructions? Mayre asked. Hold it with both hands before turning, said the vendor, nodding to the package. Set an intention, what worry you wish to slow, and why you need space around it. Flip it while exhaling. During the flow, let the sand be your tempo. When worry tries to accelerate, look at the steady grains. Understood, Maria said, although she hardly did, not yet. She tucked the parcel into her tote alongside the planner, thanked the woman, and resumed walking. The market's hush seemed even thicker now. People moved in currents, their faces unworried or at least unhurried. She noticed a boy with tear-streaked cheeks, staring open-mouthed at a booth selling kites made from dried leaves. His mother knelt behind him, smoothing his hair. Nearby, a man with a scarred jaw sat alone, holding a tiny orchid pot that emitted faint birdsong. Maria wondered how many carried hourglasses in pockets or purses, how many anxieties flowed at slower drips because of this secret economy. When she reached her apartment, the power had flickered off again. Late payment. But the bronze hourglass glimmered in moonlight from the window. Maria unpacked it onto her desk. She could still revise one more slide tonight, yet exhaustion asserted itself. Instead, she peeled back the tissue, lifted the glass, and turned it experimentally. Bronze grains poured in an obedient glacial stream. She imagined each particle a syllable of her supervisor's earlier scolding falling into the lower bulb where they could no longer sting her ears. For the first time in weeks, she slept dreamlessly. Tilde, Saturday morning, she woke to drizzle. She brewed coffee, then sat before the investor deck. Lately, the mere blue of PowerPoint's splash screen tightened her throat, but now she stared calmly at the welcome page, rotating one shoulder, then the other, as though stretching before exercise. The hourglass sat inverted beside her mug, its chamber empty of loose grains, evidence last night's turn had run out. A small residue of calm remained anyway, like dew after dawn. She worked 4 hours without recoiling, rewriting weak bullet points, trimming jargon. Whenever tension began to bubble, she rolled the glass cylinder gently between palms. She did not even flip it. She simply felt its cool curve, and that was enough. Saturday afternoon, she met her friend Joel for noodles. The restaurant buzzed, steam-blurred windows and chopsticks clacked like miniature cymbals. Joel, normally sunshine-hearted, looked gray. He confessed he'd been having panic spirals about his father's upcoming surgery. Maria considered revealing the hourglass but hesitated. Was it allowed to share? The vendor had not forbidden it, but the exchange had felt intimate. Instead, she listened. Truly listened, noticing how anxiety distorted Joel's posture. Shoulders raised, fingers trembling on the lacquered table. She remembered how weightless her own shoulders now felt. That difference felt unacceptable, almost selfish. When Joel went to pay the bill, she decided. Walk with me? She asked afterward, leading him 2 blocks to a quiet bench beneath a persimmon tree. She produced the hourglass from her tote. New decor? Joel joked, confusion flickering in his eyes. Something like that, she said. Her voice shook. Revealing the object felt akin to unveiling a secret identity. She explained the stall, the grains, the effect. Joel listened with scientist's skepticism. He was a data analyst, but desperation made him open to possibility. Turn it, she urged. Think only of slowing your fear. You can give it back tomorrow. Joel held the glass, brow furrowing. Feels like normal sand. Worry's not physical either, she said. Joel exhaled and flipped it. Bronze grains began their deliberate fall. He stared. In 30 silent seconds, his shoulders eased downward, his fingers unclenched from the wooden ends of the bench. I can still feel emotion, he said softly, but it's unhurried. Tears pooled in his lashes, not sorrow, Maria realized, but relief. They sat until every fleck pooled in the lower bulb. When the last grain descended, Joel inhaled deeply. Thank you, he whispered. That night he texted, Hourglass effect persisted most of the evening. You saved me from an ER-level panic attack. Let me take you to coffee tomorrow and return your magic device. She smiled and typed back, coffee is good. Keep it one more day. Treat your worries as guests, not gatecrashers. Tilda Sunday's sunrise parted charcoal clouds. Gold flooded Maria's small kitchen, making the hourglass glow where it waited. She should have felt cheated of its benefit now that Joel was using it, but instead an unexpected steadiness simmered in her breast. Perhaps giving the calm created more. She opened her email to rehearse the investor slides once more and found a message from her mother. Subject: Aunt Louisa's ring. Attached was a photo of a delicate silver band engraved with spirals. The sight tightened Mireya's throat. Aunt Louisa had died last spring, and her absence often ricocheted inside Mireya's chest at random intervals. Yet, even the grief felt tempered this morning, as though the underlying ache pulsed, but not at a gallop. Without the hourglass in her possession, worry still proceeded at courtesy speed. She wondered if exposure had tuned her inner metronome differently. At noon, she met Joel at a riverside cafe shaded by willow branches. He arrived with the hourglass wrapped in a handkerchief. I brought it, he said quickly, lifting a tote bag. But I want to ask something. Sure. Could I borrow it until after Wednesday? That's when Dad goes under. She hesitated only a moment. Yes, absolutely. Joel's shoulders slumped in gratitude. I'll do your dishes for a month. They laughed. When he departed, hourglass carefully cushioned, Maria realized she felt neither dread nor regret. Her lungs filled with early spring air, lilac-tinged and optimistic. Monday arrived. Standing outside the boardroom, she felt the familiar prickle of adrenaline as the door handle gleamed like a cold eye. She did not have the hourglass. Joel had it miles away. But even as her pulse skittered, it remained within bounds, like a dog on a leash rather than a feral wolf. She remembered the vendor's words, let the sand be your tempo. Maria closed her eyes and pictured those bronze grains sliding, measured, patient. She matched her breath to their invisible rhythm. The clamp on her ribs loosened. She entered. During the 32-minute presentation, she did not stumble once. Slides advanced. Faces around the table nodded, occasionally scribbling notes. When she reached the closing forecast, she felt almost giddy, yet not manic, more like serene clarity. The investors thanked her, shook hands, confirmed follow-up meetings. Her director clapped her shoulder in the hallway, astonished. Afterward, she ducked into a restroom stall and let quiet laughter spill out. Not the laugh of triumph over others, but the kind rising from a place freshly oxygenated. Tildy, that evening, Maria returned to the night market. Lanterns blinked as though recognizing her. She navigated rows until the mustard-clothed table emerged. The vendor looked up and smiled, as if expecting the reunion. It worked, Maria said simply. I thought it might. The woman rearranged hourglasses, aligning them like constellations. And I lent it to a friend. He needs it more right now. Generosity strengthens the glass, the vendor noted. Then she pushed forward a tiny hourglass, no larger than a robin's egg, its sand a bright blush. A keepsake, no charge. Maria blinked. I haven't paid in memories yet. Your act with the friend, energy given circulates. Consider it partial tender. The vendor's eyes crinkled. Besides, this one's for emergencies only. 15 minutes of profound stillness. Use sparingly. Maria accepted, warmth blooming in her chest. Thank you. Before she left, a thought surfaced. Can anyone build these, or just you? Anyone who has learned to temper their own worry long enough to shape glass and attune sand. The woman paused. If you practice, perhaps someday you will craft them too. Maria pictured herself at a furnace coaxing molten glass, breathing into a blowpipe while holding her anxiety steady like a tamed hawk. The idea stirred equal parts awe and intrigue. Outside the market, she watched strangers pass, each likely harboring storms behind their eyes. Some looked lost, others driven, others resigned. She regarded the robin egg hourglass nested in her palm. 15 minutes could be the difference between a snap and release, a late night despair and gentle dawn. She resolved to save it for when someone else's worry threatened to overflow. Tilde Wednesday afternoon, Joel texted, "Surgery successful. Dad stable, doctors optimistic." He added a string of heart emojis plus a photo of the hourglass on a hospital windowsill, sun hitting bronze grains mid-fall. Eyes still puffy from tears, Joel beamed in the background. Maria replied with her own row of hearts, then slipped her phone away. She was on a commuter bus headed to her sister's apartment to help assemble nursery furniture. Twins were due in June. Around her, chatter flickered. A man rehearsing French vocabulary, teenagers comparing playlists, an elderly lady telling a toddler they'd visit the zoo tomorrow. Ordinary symphonies of concern and hope. She gazed out the window at rows of rooftops glinting with late sun. Worries still existed for all of them, for herself. Funding deal paperwork had new hurdles. Rent remained high. Aunt Louisa's ring still sat heavy on her desk. But each worry now marched at its designated pace, no longer an stampede. An hourglass taught her that. She returned home late, muscles achy from twisting screws into crib rails. Joel would keep the bronze hourglass another week. She placed the emergency blush sand glass on her bedside shelf, then opened a notebook titled Plain Thoughts. She drew an hourglass sketch, labeling parts: upper bulb momentum, narrow throat choice, lower bulb perspective. Beside it, she penned, maybe building one begins with naming each grain. She dozed with the notebook open, dreamt of beach shores where waves whispered crisply but never roared, where transparent hourglasses rolled ashore like driftwood, waiting for hands who needed them. Tilda. A month passed. Night market Fridays became ritual. Mireille visited, conversed with the vendor whose name she learned was Kaide Absor, absorbing words about forging glass, sourcing special sand from riverbeds beneath moonlight, and the importance of maintaining personal practice. Kaide taught her breathing exercises, small meditations on frictionless attention. Worries still knocked, but they did so politely. One Friday, Kaide looked at her over the mustard cloth and said, "Ready to trade a memory?" Maria startled. She had nearly forgotten that original arrangement. "Which memory? Your choice," Kaide said. "Something that burdens you but serves no lesson." Maria sifted through her mind. She could not sacrifice Aunt Louisa's laugh, nor the day she and Joel met, nor even the humiliating high school dance fiasco that, in retrospect, taught humility. Then she recalled a fearful night 3 years prior. She had waited in a sterile hallway for biopsy results she feared would condemn her. The results turned benign, but the dread of those hours remained, embedded like a splinter. Useless now, a raw seam she revisited only to bleed anew. "That one," she whispered. Kaide handed her a silver thimble. "Hold the memory. Breathe. Exhale into here." Maria closed eyes, replayed the hallway's chlorine scent, the chair's plastic chill, the ticking exit sign. She inhaled, then exhaled through parted lips into the thimble. When she opened her eyes, faint gold vapor curled within. Kaide sealed it with wax, placed it in a wooden box, then slid the box into a drawer. The vendor bowed slightly. "Paid in full?" In exchange, Kaide gave her a kit, a clear glass shell, uncured, 2 vials of opalescent sand, and a booklet on calibration. "Your first self-made hourglass," she explained. "Shape it under moonlight. Its effect will mirror your intent." Serre embraced the box to her chest. She felt strangely lighter, like someone had quietly snipped an invisible weight and let it float away. Tilde. That weekend, on her apartment rooftop, Maria lit a small alcohol lamp. Guided by Kaide's instruction, she heated the glass blank, rotating it above gentle flame until it softened. City lights below resembled restless nerves, but overhead the moon shone throaty and sure. With each rotation, she whispered, "Slow the fear that lies, let caution stay, but panic go." She sealed the throat, filled the hourglass with opalescent grains, fused the ends. When it cooled, she turned it once. Pearl-sheened sand slipped with measured grace. She felt her pulse align. The following Monday, a junior colleague arrived at her cubicle, hands shaking, eyes wide. He had miscalculated a shipping cost and feared termination. Maria remembered the spare hourglass in her bag, born of rooftop moonlight. She handed it over. Turn, breathe, talk to me afterward. He obeyed. 5 minutes later, he stood straighter, spoke coherently, and together they corrected the error before anyone higher up noticed. He never learned where the calm came from, but he thanked her with a coffee. The hourglass returned polished, grateful, unchanged. Its grains glowed faintly, as if pleased by service. Maria realized then her life was quietly repatterning. She still wrote reports, argued metrics, changed light bulbs at home, but interspersed among tasks lay a new calling to moderate the velocity of nearby hearts. Not obliterate worry, only slow it to humane pace. Tilde summer warmed the city. Night market attendance swelled. Kaide's stall expanded, additional shelves laden with beginner kits. Mireille occasionally staffed the table when Kaide stepped away, explaining the concept in her now softened voice. She watched pedestrians arrive, hunched by anxious momentum, and leave standing straighter. One humid evening, a teenage girl approached with trembling hands. Tear-streaked mascara, her friend hovered helplessly. I have to tell my parents something, the girl whispered, and I'm so scared they'll hate me. Maria offered her a jade sand hourglass meant for 30 calm minutes. The girl clutched it like a talisman, breathing raggedly until rhythm settled. Then she smiled, faint but real. She purchased it with 2 crumpled bills and a pressed carnation, petal-scented of vanilla. She left, saying, even if they get mad, at least I won't break while it happens. Maria watched her vanish into the sea of lanterns. She felt the old kaleidoscopic energy in her chest, anxiety's cousin called empathy, slowing to synchronous breath with the girl's receding steps. This, she realized, was the market's secret engine. People regulated one another's panic, passing hourglasses like shared heartbeat stabilizers. That evening, Kaide handed Mireille a ledger and said, one day I may wander on, and someone must mind the axis of emotional sand. Train more. Mireille nodded, unafraid. Tilde autumn approached. The air grew crisp. Mireille's department secured new funding, partly credited to her calm leadership. Joel's father finished rehab, walking the neighborhood with regained vigor. The junior colleague received a promotion, citing Mireille's mentorship. Worry still came about global news, about her sister's prenatal scare, about climate-fueled storms, but each worry found itself slowed, deliberated, dissolved into problem-solving, or accepted as weather beyond control. On a late October Friday, when the night market smelled of roasted chestnuts and pine smoke, Maria arranged a row of hourglasses under mustard cloth for the first time alone. Heide had caught a train south to visit family. Lanterns swung overhead. A man approached, shaking, face damp with sweat, even in the chill. I can't, he blurted. I can't go back home. My wife, hospital complications. He clasped his temples. If I lose her, if the baby... Maria met his frantic eyes. She reached for a cobalt grain glass. 20 minutes of clarity. He placed it gently into his trembling hands and spoke words that once were said to her. Turn it while exhaling. Let each grain be the tempo your heart keeps. You'll still love them with full force. The panic will just slow enough for you to stand. He turned it. Silence wrapped around them. 3 breaths later, his shoulders lowered. Tears still fell, but now at a human-sized speed. He whispered, thank you, then hurried toward the taxi queue, hourglass tucked like an anchor. As he disappeared, Maria inhaled cool night air. Above, lanterns glowed patient. Around her, the market hummed with subdued, sustaining energy, a community of ordinary folk, their worries slowed to paces matching strong, compassionate hearts. Maria touched the robin egg emergency glass still tucked at her belt, unused. She felt no urge to flip it, or at that moment, worry itself seemed willing to listen, to flow politely into the throat of the world's collective hourglass, granting every passerby a fraction more room to breathe.